Abraham Delger wondered once more if it might be time to get out of the game. His latest assignment, like most of those he'd been forced to take in the last year or so, had nothing to do with his communications and tech expertise. He could see the reason every time he looked in a mirror. His 60th birthday was 5 weeks behind him. In a world that favored the young, he was an anomaly. When it came to tech work, most clients refused to believe someone his age would even be aware of the latest breakthroughs, let alone understand how to utilize them. So, in the past 26 months, he'd served as a decoy driver, a lookout, a contact point, and a consultant who ended up sitting in a back room throughout a whole operation, the only questions thrown his way having to do with directions to the bathroom and did he know where the op lead was. And now this. "I need someone I can trust implicitly," Gavin Carter had told him. The man had flown out to San Diego to meet with Abraham in person. Nobody did that anymore. "I need someone to do the task and not ask any questions, now or later. Someone I can keep off the books. A link breaker. You're the only person I trust to do this for me." It was unfair, really. Abraham had no doubt there were others who could have handled the job. The reality was, Carter was leaning heavily on a debt owed by Abraham that could never be fully repaid. So the older man had had no choice but to say yes. And that yes had brought him to an abandoned doorway, not far from Osaka Bay, that only partially sheltered him from the rain while he waited to take possession of the package he was to transport. No questions asked. A damn courier. About as far down the food chain as an op could get. The roar of the downpour made it nearly impossible for him to hear anything else. The rain had been falling like this since well before the sun went down, the kind of rain Abraham only expected to see in the tropics, when the remnants of a typhoon temporarily laid claim to the air and the land. The difference was, a tropical storm was warm. This one not so much. Another few degrees colder and he was sure it had turned to sleet. He scanned the road, but there were still no signs of vehicles in either direction, only the halos of light from the scattered street lamps. This was not a neighborhood someone would just drive into, especially during a storm. He checked his watch. Only a few minutes before 11 now, smack dab in the middle of the 20-minute window when the drop was supposed to occur. He knew the weather wasn't helping, but it didn't matter. If the deadline passed without the package arriving, he would be gone. That was the way it was in the espionage business. Sticking around could mean capture or death, and Abraham had already put in too many years to risk either option. The minutes continued to tick by, inching ever closer to time to go. He adjusted his coat, his mind already preparing for his exit. A dash around to the back of the building, jump in his appropriated car, and goodbye Osaka. The rumble almost sounded like distant thunder, but this wasn't that kind of storm. He looked down the road. The darkness held for another few minutes before twin headlight beams lit up one of the buildings several blocks down. A moment later, a delivery truck turned onto the road. As the vehicle neared, he could make out writing on the side below a cartoon image of a smiling woman with stars streaming out of her mouth. While Abraham could speak Japanese enough to get by in a pinch, his ability to read the language was limited to the words for toilet and exit and tickets, so he had no idea what the truck was advertising. Right on cue, the vehicle slowed and blinked its headlights once. Abraham made no immediate move to approach it, content to stay in the semi-protection of the alcove until the last possible moment.